Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Milwaukee's Thursday snack program. And those of you who have been with us before know that we call this our snack because it's a little bit different than our lunch program. There's just a little bit less to it. We don't have a pledge or an invocation or the business portion of the meeting, but and so it's less formal, and it lasts about 30 minutes. What you will find is that we will feature a member or members of the club, or we will talk about some of the amazing programs, projects of the club or programs in the community that we're connected to. But you can really count on the high quality program that you're used to getting from the Rotary Club of Milwaukee. Next week, we're going to be joined by Cullen, owner of the Tandem Restaurant, which you may have read about in the papers recently. She's really done a remarkable job of transforming the restaurant, the Tandem, really into a soup kitchen. And we're glad to support her and we're glad to welcome her next week. But today, I'm going to introduce Teresa Esser. And Teresa is the Managing Director of Silicon Pastures Angel Investment Network and has been doing that since 2006. She's been a member of the Rotary Club of Milwaukee since 2009, and over the last 20 years, she has invested in 40 early stage companies. That's pretty impressive. 7 companies have delivered a payout of between 2 times and 20 times the original investment. 2 have given investors their money back, and 15 are still continuing to grow and create jobs. And she's going to be interviewed today by Karan Plunkett. And Karen's been a member of our club since 1994. She's the president of Design Consultants and a member of the Silicon Pastures Network and is actively engaged in property management. So it's my pleasure right now to turn the program over to Karan and Teresa. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Mary.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you. And Teresa, so glad that we can talk on Zoom with all the Rotarians. Teresa and I do actively talk and our investors together, and I think this should be a great program. So Teresa, I just wanted to get started and get a little bit more information from you. And how did you get started in angel investing?
Well, my husband turned a college class project into an Ethernet telephone company. And he dropped out of school 4 years into a 5-year master's degree program and found a partner, and together they put together a business plan and put together a prototype. They raised financing. They were very fortunate. They hit it just right. They raised financing from blue chip venture capitalists. They got a great CEO to step down from his job at a big company. The MIT endowment threw in some money, and 3 years later, it was acquired. 3Com bought NBX Corporation. We became accredited investors, and my husband said that he wanted to do angel investing. And I said, whoa, hold on. We don't want to lose all this money right away. Let's slow down. So I spent 3 years interviewing all of the venture capitalists I could find in Boston. And they were called boutique venture capitalists, but they were really angel investors, about how they made their angel investment, their decisions, how they decided who to support.
Well, that sounds great. And you also wrote a book, didn't you?
Yep. It's called The Venture Cafe, Secrets, Strategies, and Stories from America's High-Tech Entrepreneurs. That came out in 2002.
Yeah, that's really a fun read. And then just to get a little bit more information, you know, as an entrepreneur, how do you think that you can increase your chance of raising money from the investors? Because you actually need capital to be able to run your small startup companies and live your dream.
That's exactly right. The best thing you can do is be responsive. So in this world that we live in, there are a lot of people who are facing a great deal of anxiety, and we need to find those entrepreneurs who are able to break through their anxiety and have difficult conversations. So the best thing you can do is be proactive about making phone calls and sending out emails. The corollary to that is then you have to answer your phone when it rings, and then you have to respond to text messages when they come in, and you have to return your voicemail. So check your voicemail and return your voicemail and return those emails. Being responsive is number one. The second thing is you need to establish relationships with large customers where everybody believes that those large customers are strong enough to be able to pay their bills. So try to get relationships with large companies. A small entrepreneur should be selling to the large companies. And in some cases, there are programs which we are going to explore further in the Rotary Club Invest in Milwaukee Committee. So there are programs, I know of some programs, we can talk about them later, but you want the relationships with the large companies because then the angels know, oh good, there's going to be somebody who can pay their bills. Somebody, and because we believe that those large companies or cities, like the city of Milwaukee, for example, could pay their bills.
I'm just going to go backwards for a little bit because I think everybody on the call is really an entrepreneur in some senses. We're all running or leading businesses or divisions of businesses and all need money. And we usually have budgets from which we draw or budgets we create and clients that pay. So could you just back up a little bit and talk a little bit about the relationship between an entrepreneur and what's like a startup? What is a startup?
Well, a startup company is any company that's started recently that hasn't really figured, that hasn't really broken through for anybody to call them a medium-sized business. A startup, so we look for technology startups. We look for companies that are really wanting to grow, where they want their revenues to go up and up and up. I would, generally speaking, we wait for companies until they have $200,000 in revenue before we invest. And we like it when the pre-money valuation is somewhat low. So we typically call that a startup. There are other things that we look for. A technology startup is a company that relies on technology. Often there's a patent, often there's a sustainable competitive advantage. We look for stellar management, but startup just means, it's usually just a couple years old, or maybe it even started this year. In some cases, they started this year, but then we can't ask them one of our favorite questions, which is, how much revenue did you have last year?
Yeah, that is one thing that I know some of us do. It's a very risky type of investment in one sense, because you don't know how this company is going to perform. And I know we all look for, I guess the mantras we use often is you look for the jockey, not the horse, when you're investing. And that basically means that you're looking for the person that's running the company, or you're trying to find a very good team that's running the company of this new startup. And you don't necessarily need, all the stuff, because they make promises that they can't necessarily anticipate if they can do or not. But I think that's great, because I think some people are, I just know that we all are in business, and so it's a really different form of a type of business that we're trying to invest in. So when you are, looking for entrepreneurs and you want to support these entrepreneurs in these new ventures or these startups, what kind of characteristics do you look in this jockey, or do you look in this, entrepreneur before you choose to actually invest in that company?
Thank you. That's a great question. We look for the single individual that we're going to be working with over the next 3 years or 5 years, or in some cases 10 years. And we look for how that individual person came to starting this business. So it's a good idea if they came up with the idea on their own or found it on their own, rather than having their parents set them up in business. We sometimes find that. We ask them how they found their customers, and the correct answer is, I found them through my own strength. I found them through my own network, rather than, oh, my parents found the customers for me, or I went through a business accelerator and they made all these introductions and now I have all these introductions. We want the person to be able to demonstrate to us, because when we're working with them, we know we're going to be working with them past the end of their time in any accelerator that they went through. We're going to be working with them not just for the next 3 months, but for the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. So we want them to continue to have that creativity. So we need to gauge that they had that creativity in the first place. Also, it's a good idea if they believe in the business enough that they're able to make a significant investment from their own personal funds. And significant varies from person to person, what significant means, but we try to get a sense of how much net worth they had, how much money they had, and did they invest a significant portion in this business by their own standards.
Okay, and I also wanted to add to that. I think we had one company we were looking at that was a family-run business. So it's not only family money, but it's sometimes a lot of these entrepreneurs, they tend to involve siblings or aunts and uncles, daughters or sons, and that also becomes challenging because I'm not sure they're quite as objective as they could be. Don't you agree?
Right. I just look for the one person and how did they find their network? How did they build their network? Did they build it through their own personal efforts, or what, did it somehow land in their lap? The challenge with a family business is there are going to be a lot of decision makers. You want to be able to have a direct relationship with the entrepreneur because you want to be on the same side of the table, and we will get paid when the entrepreneur gets paid in the end when they cash out and sell the business. Sometimes when it's a family business, they're thinking about multi-generational. They may never want to sell it, in which case the angels will never get paid. We will never get our liquidity event. So a family business is great for the family. If family members want to support an entrepreneur, the thing they should do is write a check to the entrepreneur, become angel investors on that cap table. That's the best place for them. If they want to work at the company together with the entrepreneur, then I don't know if it's the right fit oftentimes for an angel investment network to get involved.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just going to add one thing to that, in that the frustrating part of being an angel investor is exactly what you just talked about, is the exit. And yes, you can have a great company, and this company can go on in perpetuity, and they're not paying dividends unless that's structured in a term sheet. So therefore, you as an investor could have put down, hundreds of thousands of dollars or $10,000 or whatever your value is, and just have it sit there and not get any return, and you're waiting for an exit. So I think, just adding to what you're saying, the ability to exit, to find mergers or people to whom they might buy your business, that's really just as important, right?
Exactly. We need to believe that we're going to get an exit. So we need to believe that we're going to invest at a low pre-money valuation, that we're going to negotiate a low pre-money valuation, and then we're going to work with the entrepreneur to help them increase their revenue. That's why we need to find companies where we can be smart money in that deal. And we want to sell. So an angel investor wants to get 3 times their money back, 5 times their money back, 10 times their money back, 20 times their money back when the payout comes. So we need to believe that they're going to agree to sell, because they'll typically have control of the business.
Yeah, that's great. And then one other item, I know, Teresa, you sit on some boards, and I sit on a board or two of some of these angel companies. So as an investor, one does on occasion get the ability to influence some of that, and hopefully, as a success. So I've got another question for you. Could you give an example of a time when you started out thinking that the company was going to go one way, and then it pivoted and completely changed its course?
Yes. We made an investment in a company called Nitride Solutions. And when we started, we thought that they were going to sell their aluminum nitride templates to a company like Hansol Chemical, which was going to turn around and sell it to Samsung. And it was going to be used to get the heat out of electronics like mobile phones or tablets or things that were getting smaller and smaller, that were going to get more compressed, and they had a stronger need to get the heat up. Now, the world needs sterilization. And so these aluminum nitride tablets, aluminum nitride templates are used to make UVC LEDs, ultraviolet, the C bandwidth of the ultraviolet spectrum. And they're used to sterilize surfaces. They're used to sterilize air or water or surfaces. And that's where the demand is right now, these sterilization technologies. So the company was able to pivot, and that's the world has changed. The aluminum nitride itself has not changed. The templates have gotten better, but the world has used them in a completely different way. And so that goes to, who are you selling to? Who are the customers? Where's the largest amount of demand coming from? You have to be, I guess, responsive.
So just building on that, when did you first get wind of Nitride Solutions? Could you just maybe take us on like a 30-second timeline of how that worked?
Sure. This is a company that took a little bit of time. I first learned about it in around 2013, and I brought it to Silicon Pastures, and we made an investment, and then we made another investment, and I helped them get some investment from this Korean company who I thought wanted to be a distributor, and I thought it was completely obvious that, well, they would distribute the company, they would make an investment in the company, they would get the distribution rights, we would sell to the customers in Korea, Japan, and maybe China, maybe Germany, and then the United States also. But we've, the world has started to really perceive a strong need for sterilization within the last few months. So it's interesting. It takes, in some cases, it takes a while. In some cases, it takes a decade, But other times it's 1 year and you're out.
Right. So, then what kind of companies are angel investors most excited about now, do you think? I know Silicon Pastures has, about 40 members, and we look at certain types of companies, but let's look even broader. What is it? Local companies? What types of companies? What types of businesses? Maybe the countries? What do you think? What's the trend? And especially maybe in this era of pandemics and social distancing, maybe that has some influence.
Exactly. So early stage investing has always been local. That means you need somebody on the ground who can go and sit with the entrepreneur and talk to them and reassure them and support them, no matter what is happening. But it's now we've gotten into syndication with other local groups. So if I have a company in Milwaukee that I'm working on and it's an impact company, I can bring in impact investors from California or from Colorado or from Boston or from Texas to listen to that pitch. And so I've spent a lot of time on syndication phone calls. We have led a lot of investments. We've participated in a lot of investments in the Milwaukee area, the Wisconsin area. And now we're going to look at a couple companies from farther away that are led by other groups. And that's sort of the back and forth nature of being a good syndication partner. But the type of companies that are interesting right now are companies that can predict whether or not people are going to be able to pay their bills based on their past behavior. So that's data analytics and artificial intelligence. There are companies that use data analytics and artificial intelligence to predict when we're going to have congestion in cities and help drivers figure out new routes for driving around so that they don't add to the congestion. There are companies that we listened to a pitch recently. An entrepreneur is building a new form of robotic coffee delivery service, which doesn't involve any people. He's taking a shipping container and putting a robot in it and have that robot make coffee for you, and you can use your cell phone to schedule a time to pick it up. So that may be coming soon to a location not far from the War Memorial in the near future. We'll see. We hope that they're successful in getting set up. Also, any company, so we invested in a company in Milwaukee called Findable, and that company has gotten a lot of attention recently. They help kids prepare for their AP exams using the internet, and they help kids tutor other kids. So a student who's gotten a 5 on an AP exam can turn around and be a tutor to tutor other kids using the internet, using video streaming. That company has gotten a lot more attention since all the schools closed down and all the students became homeschooled, for lack of a better word. And so we're proud that we were able to work with other fellow Rotarian Frank Cumberbatch, also member of the Rotary Club, Invest in Milwaukee committee, to sit down and say, how can we get this company in front of the widest number of students? We are motivated by our desire to help the company's revenues go up because we're investors, but we're also motivated to help this company get its offerings out to the widest number of students, because students need to learn. They need to learn their calculus, their physics, their U.S. history classes, and they need to get tutored by other students. It's the most comfortable way for them to learn is just by chatting and speaking naturally to people, to their peers.
Yeah, that's great. So I think I have one more question for you, and I think then we will open it up to some of the questions you all might have. I think you can submit questions via the chat on Zoom. But I just wanted to sort of wrap up my section. And what is the biggest secret you've learned about angel investing? And you've been doing this, you said, for about 20 years. How can you enlighten us?
Absolutely. The thing I learned very, very quickly in the beginning is we can't invest in everybody. So we can only invest in a small number of the people who approach us. But every single entrepreneur who approaches us needs to be treated with respect and with dignity. But we're going to be saying no most of the time. So what is the correct way to communicate with entrepreneurs when we know for a fact that this is our public relations message, every single communication we have? And so the best message that I ever heard of is, I'm not smart enough to understand how we can work together to make money. I am the one who's not smart enough to understand how I can work with you on your business to make money. It's not you, it's me. The reason why that's important, the phrasing is important, is because the first thing the entrepreneur is going to say is, like, it'll throw them for a loop. You know, they'll say, well, first of all, you're not smart enough. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. How could you not see it? And the answer is, I can't see it because I don't know what I can do to add value to your business. And then we go to humility and we say, you just have a small cap table. You need to find smart money. You need to find the person who is smarter than me because of their experience. So every business is different. Every business needs to have a relationship with an angel investor who has real relationships in their own industry, where they can you know, bring in the large company to be their distribution partner, bring in the large company to be their customer. And if I don't have the right relationships for you because I worked in one industry and not another, then you need to find somebody else. And so it challenges them to think, well, who would be the smart money? Who is the right angel investor? Who should I be approaching? And that's where Rotary comes in, because we have hundreds of members and even more members outside of our club. You can say, well, who do you know who is in my industry? Who do you know who could be smart money? Who could open the door for a big company that could be a distribution partner for me? And it gets them thinking. And it's the best way to say. And in some cases, it's not a no. It's not now. Call me later when you do have $200,000 in revenue and you do have a better distribution strategy.
That's great. And I just wanted to add one more thing to that, and that is there's a difference, but not a difference between the angel investing and the typical donations that we all make. And I just wanted to say sort of what's enlightened me in that, you know, Rotary is supporting the Stable Project, or some of us may be all supporting urban ecology, or a lot of these not-for-profits. That's all wonderful. It's great. The other reason that some people do angel investing, and that I found as I guess heartfelt as well, is that I'm helping people in the city, helping people starting up new jobs, and it's sort of like a business catalyst. And you know, I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. Sometimes the investments I make are more to help these businesses grow, and I'm not sure I'm ever going to get a return. So I just want to sort of clarify that. I sort of see an altruistic side to some of the angel investing.
I agree. Some people call it program-related investing or mission-related investing. The question is, would you have invested in this business if it were not part of your mission? And that's for a person to decide. And, you know, in some cases, you can make money. In some cases, you don't really know whether you can make money, but you really, really want it to succeed because they're doing something that's critically important for our world, for our city. And so that's, you have to decide whether you're writing the check from your own personal wealth with the intention of getting that big return, or maybe taking it from a foundation and just walking away and hoping for the best.
Okay, great. Well, Teresa, thank you. Okay, go, Mary.
Yeah, Karen.
Handing it over to you, Mary. Go.
Thank you, Karen. This was really a very, very thoughtful conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the lead and walking us through this. Here from Teresa Regan, do you invest in companies as Silicon Pastures, or do your individual members do the investing?
So we aggregate investments from individuals. Individuals write checks of between $10,000 and any amount to a new bank account, a new business that we set up, and we'll call the business like SP Findable LLC, or SP Front Desk LLC, or SP some name of the business LLC. So we're creating a new ad hoc LLC every time we make an investment, but it's from a pool.
Okay. And how do you define Silicon Pastures competition? And do you have local competitors?
There are other angel investment networks in the city, in the state, in the region, certainly. We differentiate ourselves by really pushing companies to try to expand globally, using partners in South Korea, Japan, and sometimes China or elsewhere, wherever we can find a distribution partner. Every individual angel group has their own special mission. Some angel groups are really dedicated to help military veterans. They only want to invest in companies if there's a military veteran. Some only want to invest in companies if it's an impact investment. An impact investment could be, they're doing something really good for the world. Or some people only want to invest in companies if they're doing something related to climate change. There are angel networks that draw from alumni of a certain school, like Notre Dame alumni, for example. So you just have to look around and see where you feel most comfortable. We have been meeting locally. So we meet 8 times a year. So we have 8 meetings, that's one differentiator. But there's certainly different groups, and we need more. We don't think we have any competitors. We only think we have collaborators, because the need is there, and we need people to step forward and make investments alongside us. That's why we syndicate. We'll share our great deals with other groups.
Can I just add one? Can I add one thing to that?
Course.
Because when I started, and I was really interested in some of this area, I had thought that as an angel investor to join one of these groups, one had to put forth, say, $5,000 or $10,000. You had to put forth money, and it went into a pool, and the pool was invested in certain areas. And that's not the case at all of Silicon Pastures, where you can go to meetings and listen to 20, 30 pitches a year and invest nothing because it's just not what you want to do that year. Or you can invest in all of them. You can do whatever you want. It's all individual based.
That's helpful. And this is more of a general question, but I know there are different types of early stage capital, and angel investing is one. Is there a type of investing that is suitable to companies that don't have $200,000 a year in revenue? And then are there other types of investors that work with companies further along in the growth cycle?
Absolutely. So that's where they really need to find smart money, or they need to find somebody who really can add value to the business. So we define the $200,000 threshold. This is a threshold that George Mosier gave me after he had made 175 angel investments. He said, the ones before they get to $200,000, it's more philanthropic. After they get to $200,000, it's more of a business. I'm getting good returns. I can show you my great financial returns. And so there are philanthropic entities, there are business accelerators that could potentially teach the entrepreneur what they need to know, introduce them to supporters, mentors who are part of the accelerators, and they'll even write a check. So they'll write a starter check. They'll challenge the entrepreneur to go through this program. There are many accelerators, and many of the accelerators are getting financial grants from governments, from cities, from industry support groups. WEDC, for example, supports industry accelerators. And so what we look for is we say, okay, did you go out and try to get all the support that you could get that's out there, that's free money from the government? Did you try to get a grant? Did you get that grant? How did that work? And so, and then, when you went through that accelerator, how hard did you work to get through that accelerator? How many, introductions did they make? Did you follow up all those introductions? It's shocking to me when they did go through those accelerators and they didn't follow up the introductions, because insert reason. And that's where we're looking for people who are hungry. What was the percentage? If you reached out to 100 potential customers because you were introduced by these people in the accelerator, what's the pipeline look like? How did those customers react? Did the customers like the product? Did they like your offering? Well, is this the right offering for you to be pursuing? We want to invest in companies where the entrepreneur actually has found a way to get revenue because they found something that the world actually needs. Maybe they need to pivot. So yes, there are certainly, and I think there are lists. I know for a fact there are lists of early stage places to go if you're an entrepreneur to get that initial boost of support, those grants, those instructions, introductions to mentors, people who are able to do the smart money investing because they want to have a relationship with you. We just have defined our own threshold. We're just one of many.
Oh, terrific!
Isn't WEDC a great resource in our area?
Yes, it is. WEDC is an excellent resource. I love them.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I think we're past the 12:30 hour, and so I think we will wrap up. But anyone who would like to stay and chat with Karen and with Teresa is welcome to do so. And I know that both Karen and Teresa are listed in our Rotary directory, and they would love to connect with you and chat with you about angel investing at your convenience as well. So thank you all for joining us today, and special thanks to Teresa and Karen, and we'll have a little round of virtual applause, and then we will close down and shift to a more informal format for conversation. So thank you, everyone.